The moment I opened my eyes, I realized I had been reborn on the very day of my coming-of-age ceremony. The day the true daughter came to claim her place. Without hesitation, I packed my belongings and prepared to return to my birth parents' home. My adoptive mother panicked. My adoptive father regretted. And even my former fiancé came to pester me again and again. I am Mylin, daughter of the Prime Minister's household. On the day of my coming of age, the midwife who had delivered me years ago brought a girl named Yar into the Prime Minister's manor, claiming she was the true daughter. In my previous life, on that same day, I had done everything in my power to keep Yar from entering the manor's gates. Yet, it was precisely that desperate resistance that made my adoptive parents despise me. After all, I had been raised by them for 16 years, how could they simply cast me aside? To placate me, my adoptive father allowed me to remain in the household, while Yarn was officially welcomed as the second young lady. My birth parents were merchants. In my past life, I had refused to acknowledge them. I thought merchants were lowly. And as the daughter of the Prime Minister, to recognize such people as my parents felt like a disgrace. When Yarn returned, my adoptive parents adored her deeply. To make up for her lost years, they gave her the finest things, better clothes, better jewels, and even bestowed my betrothal upon her. A crown prince and I had grown up together, childhood sweethearts, with an engagement arranged since we were young, awaiting only my coming of age to wed. But now, the true daughter had returned, stealing not only the affection that once belonged to me, but also the heart of the crown prince, who had once sworn eternal devotion. Before others, she was gentle and pure, like a timid white rabbit. Behind closed doors, she provoked me at every turn, declaring that she would reclaim everything that was rightfully hers. In my desperation for my mother's affection and the prince's favor, I lost myself. I schemed. I fought. I used every means I could, but in the end, I lost to blood ties and profit. Yarn was the true daughter of the Prime Minister's manor. My adoptive father pitied and cherished her. My adoptive mother shielded her in everything. To compensate for her years of suffering, they handed over everything that once belonged to me. The crown prince, seeking my father's political support, agreed without hesitation to change his betrothal to her. My adoptive father, to protect Yarn, cast me out of the manor and severed all ties with me. The crown prince, too, humiliated me before a crowd, cursing me, vowing never to see me again. When my birth parents took me home, they urged me to let go of the past, to start anew. But I believed even they favored Yarn. Men were unimportant and trustworthy, but I had been too blind to see. I only saw how everyone loved her more than me. Even my biological brother took her side, refusing to acknowledge my existence before others. In rage and despair, I stormed into the Prime Minister's manor on their wedding day. I confronted the crown prince, demanding to know if all his vows of love had been nothing but lies built on status. Words spilled uncontrollably from my lips, everything that should not be said. I became a madwoman in the eyes of the crowd. I was slapped across the face, publicly humiliated, and beaten to death by the prince's guards, while my adoptive parents stood by, silent. In my final moments, regret filled me. Titles, love, purity of lineage, none of it mattered. None of it was worth losing myself. Mother, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I was wrong. If only I could bite again, I would never make you grieve. Perhaps my remorse moved the heavens, or perhaps my unwillingness to die did. Because I was reborn, given a second chance, I would no longer fight for love or pride. I would no longer make myself the cause of sorrow for those who cared for me. When I opened my eyes, my maid Cuir was calling urgently. Miss, please wake up. You can't sleep in today, it's your coming of age ceremony. Her face was bright with joy and pride. Everything had reset. She was still here. In my previous life, she had been sold to a brothel by Yarn for protecting me and died in bitterness. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her thin frame, trembling, sobbing softly. Miss, you can't cry on such a happy day. You should be smiling, she teased, pinching my cheeks playfully. Today was my coming of age, the day the midwife would bring Yarn to the manor. If that was so, then I would give her this ceremony. See you ire. Stop fussing. Help me pack lightly, just a few sets of clothes. Nothing valuable. Why? She asked, confused. I patted her head gently. Be good. Help me pack. If you want to come with me, pack a few of your things too. The Prime Minister's lady was busy with servants, oblivious to my quiet preparations. By noon, the midwife indeed arrived, and by her side, holding the lost jade pendant from years ago. After some questioning, it was confirmed, Anne was their true daughter. I, Myelin, had been mistakenly taken home 16 years ago, while they were still discussing how to handle it. I slung my bundle over my shoulder and stepped forward to bid them farewell. Father, Mother, please allow me to call you that one last time. 16 years of kindness I can never repay. But my real parents have just lost their daughter. I wish to return to them and serve by their side. Everyone was stunned. The true daughter had only just arrived, and here I was, leaving with my bag. Two outsiders. It would seem the Prime Minister's manner had treated me cruelly, driving me away in haste. The Prime Minister's lady panicked. How could she bear to let go of the daughter she had raised for 16 years? Myelin, are you afraid I won't love you anymore? You're my dearest child. How could I not love you? Please don't go. I beg you. My adoptive father, too, pleaded. Myelin, no matter who else comes home, you'll always be the Prime Minister's daughter. Your place in this family won't change. Stay for your mother's sake. Anne clenched her fists so tightly her nails nearly pierced her palms. Her hateful gaze burned into me, but I pretended not to notice. In my previous life, it was my greed for status and for the crown prince that led to my downfall. This time, I wanted none of it. I only wanted to live freely. Bowing deeply to the Prime Minister and his lady, I turned and left with Cuir. As I stepped out of the grand gates, I breathed freely for the first time. The sky was blue, the clouds white, the bustling streets alive with laughter and joy. From now on, I was the daughter of merchants. I could dress as I pleased, speak as I wished, and live without currying favor or bending myself for anyone's approval. My parents were merchants, and their property was a small tea house just outside the west gate of the capital. I dashed through the streets with Cuir, finally arriving at my parents' home. The house was nowhere near the grandeur of the Xian mansion, not even a tenth of its size. Yet it exuded warmth. My mother, Xiaoangya, was a woman of culture, and it was she who had taught Yar everything she knew. In my previous life, I despised this family. I thought them mere merchants, unworthy of a Xian mansion daughter. Yet now, the first time I stepped through their door, tears streamed down my parents' faces. I threw myself into my mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. If I had been more understanding in my past life, my mother might not have withered away in sorrow, my father might not have collapsed under despair, and my brother might have avoided falling into traps set by others. After a long while, I let go of my mother and helped wipe her tears. She drew me aside and asked softly, "What is your name?" "I'm Myelin," I replied. "Oh, Myelin, that's a lovely name," she said. My father chimed in. "Our Myelin is not only well named, but also beautiful, just like your mother in her youth." My mother, like a young girl, pouted gently and playfully tapped my father, a rosy flush of shyness coloring her cheeks. From their interaction, it was clear how deeply my father adored her, their bond strong and tender. Their way of relating to each other was something I'd never seen in the Xiang mansion. There, the Xiang madam had raised me to obey all rules of a wife, to study the injunctions and teachings for women, to treat the husband as heaven itself. But my parents were the opposite. My father's happiness was intertwined with my mother's joy. He would do anything for her. They supported and helped each other, living a life of harmony. The man tilling the land, the woman weaving. It was a life I longed for. We chatted in the front hall for half an hour before a dark-haired, handsome young man hurried in. I recognized him, my elder brother. He had inherited my father's business and spent his days running errands and deals. His ambitions were greater than father's. He wanted to expand into tea, silk, and more. My father, on the other hand, only wished to maintain their tea house in the west of the city. Content as long as there was food on the table. Before he even appeared, my brother Zihifan's voice called out, "Father. Mother. I bought some new furniture and things for the girls' room. Later, we'll clean up the old wing where grandmother used to live. And she can move in." Then he noticed me sitting by mother's side. He looked astonished. "You're my sister?" He reached out to take my hand. Hesitated as if reconsidering. Wiped his own hand. And then tried again. In the Xiang mansion, etiquette forbade me from touching a man's hand casually, even my own brother. But here, we were ordinary citizens. Unbound by rigid rules. Boldly, I stepped forward and embraced him. My voice trembling as I cried, "Brother." Zihifan froze. Stunned by my action. Then he led me to mother's side and asked gently, "Sister, would you like to stay in Yarn's old room? Or should we prepare a new one for you? If you prefer her room, I'll replace anything you dislike." What a doting brother. How had I missed this in my past life? Or was it my own fault for being blind? Clearing my throat, I said, "Brother, I don't want her room. I want my own." "All right. Wait here. I'll have it prepared immediately." With that, he strode off without a backward glance. In my previous life, I had been stubborn, never noticing the people around me. Now, in just half a day, I had become familiar with my parents. My brother spent the afternoon in the back courtyard, clearing out Yarn's belongings. Now they were just her old things, and discarding anything she had used. Before dinner, he took me to see the room he had prepared for me. It was beautiful. Some things weren't as precious as those in the Xiang mansion, but they were chosen with care, and I was delighted. A brother like him, what more could a sister ask for? Days passed peacefully. When idle, my mother took me shopping, buying me the finest of everything. My brother, meanwhile, sailed south, returning with all manner of trinkets, cosmetics, and exquisite silk embroidery I had never seen before. But my favorite was the sandalwood hairpin my brother gave me. It carried a subtle fragrance, and was crafted with such skill that it was clearly the work of a master. He said my eyes were sharp, able to spot good things at a glance. 2 weeks slipped by in this way, until suddenly a carriage from the Xiang mansion pulled up at our door. It was Xiang Yi and his wife, and old Wen unloaded a number of items, which my mother politely declined. In my previous life, they had witnessed my death without even flinching. What could their purpose be now? Uneasy, I followed my mother inside, watching the Xiang couple perform their act. Xiang Yi glanced at me, standing obediently, and asked with feigned concern, "Mylin, are you comfortable living here?" I nodded, replying formally, keeping them at a distance, "Xiang Yi, I am accustomed to living here. I apologize for worrying you." In the past, I would have cried and begged to return. But now was different. Having faced life and death, this minor hardship was nothing. Especially with loving parents here. The Xiang madam's face faltered, a hint of unease showing through. She asked timidly, "Mylin, your mother misses you so much. Can you return with her? You are the daughter of the Xiang mansion, now reduced to a merchant's girl. Your mother knows you have suffered, and she's come today to bring you home." Xiang Yi echoed her, "Yes. Mylin, your mother has longed for you." Unable to eat or sleep properly, my heart ached. After 16 years, how could I abandon my parents now? Yet I could not go. I had parents here as well, and I had to stay to fulfill my filial duty. I remembered that in my previous life, they had initially hesitated, then became cruel after Yarn arrived. Everything had changed after that. I gazed at the madam's increasingly thin face and knelt deeply, bowing 3 times with solemnity. "Xiang Yi, Madame, the 16 years of your care will always be remembered. If there is ever anything I can do, Mylin will do her utmost." My stance was clear and unwavering. I refused to return. Unwilling to set foot in that household again. Unwilling to repeat the past. I thought sending off the Xiang couple would restore my life to normal. I was wrong. I had underestimated human greed. And I had underestimated Yarn's cunning. One reason I could be betrothed to the crown prince was the influence of the chancellor's household. and the other was my unparalleled reputation in the capital. I had beauty. I was educated and refined. Skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, having fulfilled my ensai, and painting proficient in every accomplishment. At 9 years old, I had dazzled at a palace banquet, catching the Empress's attention. Over the years, she had continued to cultivate me with her elegance and refinement. Now that the Prime Minister's household suddenly had a new daughter, the Crown Prince refused to accept it. His perfectly good fiancée was gone, replaced by the daughter of a merchant, and that he could not tolerate. Facing the reality of the Crown Prince's withdrawn engagement, the Prime Minister panicked, and his wife even more so. Their son, Gong Weiyao, was utterly at a loss. In a desperate attempt to salvage the marriage alliance, the Prime Minister and his wife came personally to beg me to return. I refused. Perhaps in my previous life, it was because I had caused such a commotion that Yarn found her opening turning the Crown Prince's affection into disgust, and even making the Empress doubt my character. But in this life, I had chosen not to fight. Ironically, cutting fulfilled my ensai. That made them more eager than ever to keep me shackled at their side. Yet I had no intention of being bound again. One day, while helping my father at the tea house, I overheard the heir of Marquis Jingyuan, the son of the Minister of Works, and the second son of the General's manor chatting idly. The minister's son, Jinghuael, said, "Have you heard? The Crown Prince knelt before the palace for 2 days and nights, begging His Majesty to rescind the engagement." The General's second son, Guou, snorted. "They're both daughters of the Prime Minister's manor. What difference does it make who he marries?" "That's not true," Jinghuael countered. "The former Milan was the paragon of noble ladies in the capital. As for this one, if it were me, I wouldn't marry her either." "Why not?" Guou asked, puzzled. "The current Prime Minister's daughter may have merchant's blood, but that's not the issue. Just the other day, she met the Empress in the palace and committed one blunder after another, no grasp of etiquette, only flaunting her new title. I also heard she beat several of her maids to death merely for talking back to her, thinking her new status gave her the right." Guou clicked his tongue. As expected of merchant stock, eyes full of gold, hearts void of virtue. From the next private room, I listened in silence. Though their disdain for merchants disgusted me, I could not deny that their words held a trace of truth. My mother was an educated and refined woman, though her maternal family were not merchants. She had been born a concubine's daughter in a declining household and married my father out of necessity. She once told me that before Yarn returned to the Prime Minister's manor, she had not been as domineering and insolent as she was now. Perhaps she relied too much on the Prime Minister couple's guilt. After studying my emotions, I pushed open the door to leave and came face to face with the heir of Marquis Jingyuan. Shu Yanor. What a coincidence. I greeted awkwardly. Once, aside from the Crown Prince, Shu Yanor had been the only man I spoke to. The three of us grew up together. The Crown Prince was always proper and rigid, bound by decorum. Shu Yanor, by contrast, was free-spirited and wild, following only his whims. Back then, I had to act composed and dignified every day, molding myself into the perfect future Crown Princess. Yet deep down, I longed to live as Shu Yan or did, to ride through the western winds, wander the spring fields, catch fish in summer streams, climb trees for autumn fruit, and hurl snowballs in winter battles. Only with him could I truly be myself. Only before him could I breathe freely. Shu Yanor seemed surprised to see me there, but after recalling that my parents were merchants, he seemed to think it only natural. "Myelin, is this your father's establishment?" "Shu Yanor, you're as clever as ever. One guess, and you got it right." He smiled faintly, then teased, "So, won't you invite me for a cup of tea?" How could I refuse, when Shu Yanor himself asks? I replied with a grin. I went downstairs and told the attendant to brew a pot of pre-rain Longjing tea and send it to a private room upstairs, along with some pastries. Longjing is a green tea. Too much of it can upset the stomach, so I made sure to bring something sweet to balance it. Shu Yanor was as relaxed as always, half reclining on his chair. his gaze following a lone wild goose flying south beyond the window, following his eyes. I softly recited, "Who sends the brocade letter through the clouds? When the geese return, the moon fills the western tower. Shu Yanor. Who are you thinking of?" He turned to me and laughed. "Myelin. Do you really think a man like me idle, reckless, aimless would have any lady fancy him?" I poured him a cup of tea and teased. "What's this? Is Shu Yanor feeling insecure now? Where's the confidence you used to have? Your merits could fill a book." Before I even finished, he sputtered out his tea, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, somewhere between confusion and sorrow. After a long pause, he finally asked quietly, "Myelin, now that your engagement to the crown prince has been annulled, have you thought about what comes next?" "No," I said firmly. "I think I can live my whole life alone. I need neither husband nor child." For the first time, I saw a flicker of emotion I couldn't name in Shu Yanor's eyes, something that made my chest ache faintly. Perhaps it was the bond we shared since childhood. In my past life, I had never known this feeling. After a long silence, he said softly, "Myelin, if one day you decide you want to marry, and can't find anyone suitable, would you consider me first?" Did he like me? Or was he merely offering companionship out of affection? I thought he must be joking. After all these years, how could he harbor such feelings? If he did, why hadn't he shown it before? Without thinking, I blurted out a single word, "All right." The moment it escaped, I panicked. I must have gone mad. But Shu Yanor just laughed, a bright, unguarded laugh that made even the sun seem warmer, the wind gentler. Somewhere deep in my heart, a quiet joy unfurled. Perhaps, after all, there was someone willing to walk 1,000 miles beside me. Women learn not only to read books, but to witness the vastness of mountains and seas, to lay freely, not trapped behind courtyard walls. I didn't know what the future held, but if I had to choose one person, perhaps choosing him was the best decision of all. That night, lying in bed, I thought of Shu Yanor's words, of our childhood days together, and an unconscious smile curved my lips. Perhaps word had spread that I'd seen Shu Yan, or perhaps the crown prince simply couldn't let go because he appeared at my home in person. "Myelin, have you been well? I've missed you dearly." Disgust churned in my throat. How dare he? This was the same man whose guards had beaten me to death in my previous life. Back then, Yaron had wept in his arms, accusing me of bullying her and conspiring with other noble ladies to torment her. A few tears, a trembling voice, and he believed her. He scolded me publicly, humiliated me, condemned me without question. Was it truly because I had stolen what was rightfully hers? No one knew how much I had sacrificed to become his crown princess. While everyone else was out enjoying food and festivities, I practiced the zither and refined my calligraphy. When others were celebrating, I was learning women's handiwork, through biting cold and harsh weather. I never missed a single day. Everything I achieved through relentless effort. Outsiders assumed I had been born with. Yet the crown prince believed it was a gift from him. Everything that should have belonged to Yaron, I had returned. What wasn't hers, I had given to, and yet he still believed her lies. The harder I fought, the more resentful I became. The more I resisted, the more I lost. Those things I had gained, and even those I had never had, all vanished. And I paid with my very life. I maintained a cold expression and said lightly, "Your Highness, I am living very well. No need to trouble yourself with me." I refused him. My stance had changed. Panic flashed across the crown prince's face as he hurriedly asked, "Are you not well?" I had been busy with state affairs and could not seek you out, but now that I am here, if you are willing, I can petition the emperor immediately. Our wedding can take place at once. You will still be my crown princess." I let out a bitter laugh. A powerless, hadn't fulfilled my sigh. Unsupported crown princess, what emperor would accept such a match? Did the crown prince not see reality? No, he was the most calculating of men. His offer likely relied on Xiangyi being my foster father, mutual benefit for both sides. Of course I realized it. So I decisively rejected him. "Your Highness, please choose your words carefully. I am merely the daughter of merchant Shao. Could I ever be worthy of you, the sovereign?" I beg you not to speak recklessly. Mylin. Is it that I have not treated you well enough? Don't refuse me like this. The crown prince advanced, gripping my hand tightly. His face contorted with anger. Fear surged through me. I struggled to free myself. And in my desperation, I shoved him with all my strength, almost sending him sprawling to the ground. He staggered back, barely maintaining his balance. Perhaps he realized his behavior was improper, that he had offended me. Or maybe his patience had simply run out and he refused to beg any longer. He left in a huff, warning he would return. I was still trembling from the ordeal, barely registering his words, assuming them to be mere threats of anger. Why had I never seen this obsessed, irrational side of him? Was it because I had always been compliant, like a gentle lamb, never opposing him? Now that I defied his wishes, he could not tolerate it? I shook my head to clear the lingering fear, steadied my emotions, and made my way toward the tea house. Since the last time Xu Yan or had visited me there, he had come nearly every day. Today, I ran into him again. This time, it was the three of them. They had all been taught by the same grand tutor as children and had grown into a tight-knit trio. Unlike before, I did not hide in the next room to eavesdrop. I sat openly with them, listening as they recounted the latest amusing events in the capital. Naturally, having fulfilled my absai, the topic that drew the most attention was still the love triangle between Yarn, the crown prince, and myself. The stories always revolved around Yarn's small efforts to pursue love. I had seen enough in my past life and found them uninteresting now. Suddenly, Jinghua El Mensch and the Double Ninth Festival, when the palace traditionally held a banquet for the ministers and their young heirs. I remembered that on the festival day in my previous life, something significant had happened, an event after which the crown prince's attitude toward me changed completely. I tried to recall exactly what had occurred, but it eluded me. Xu Yan noticed my absence mid caution, and, thinking I was sad because I could not attend the banquet, comforted me. Mylin. The palace banquet is meaningless, just a bunch of ladies gossiping. It's better not to go. I don't want to attend either. Hearing this, Guo and Jinghua El nodded in agreement, casting me sympathetic looks. Assuming I had not yet recovered from the loss of my engagement, I forced a smile, clarifying, I don't care about attending the banquet. I dislike such gatherings. I was merely pondering what amusing incidents might occur this year. Xu Yan stroked my head, smiling. What could happen? It's the same every year. Nothing different. His gaze was both intense and gentle, refusing to leave me for even a moment. In his eyes, there was nothing but affection. Suddenly, my head throbbed. I felt as if I had seen such a gentle gaze somewhere before. Fleeting, unfamiliar images flashed through my mind, a sea of chrysanthemums. Yarn. The crown prince, expressions of hostility on their faces. They had scolded me. What had they said? I could not recall. All I remembered was that after they left, Xu Yan had appeared beside me. He told me he trusted me, promised me a better life, that there was no need to concern myself with the crown prince. What exactly had happened in my past life? Why had their attitude shifted so drastically? Why had I spiraled toward ruin? What had I forgotten? The images I glimpsed were clearly from the Double Ninth Palace banquet. No matter, I had chosen to live again. So why dwell on the past? Xu Yan Guo and Jinghua El all noticed my earlier gesture and the abnormal expression on my face. Concerned, Xu Yan asked, Mylin. What's wrong? I shook my head. Nothing. Just recalling something. Really, hadn't cancelled my ansai. It's nothing. Seeing me return to normal, they relaxed and continued their conversation. By evening, Jinghua El and Guo returned to their residence, leaving only Xu Yan and me in the room. He stared at me silently for a long while before asking, Mylin, do you still think about your engagement to the crown prince? If so, I can help you. I froze, stunned. Why? I asked. I didn't understand why Xu Yan asked that. A heaviness settled in my chest ever since I left the Prime Minister's manor. I had abandoned that engagement. Mulin. Just now I saw your pain. Are you giving up the crown prince because of your status? Yarn. She doesn't deserve him. Xu Yanor's words were sharp, almost awkward, as if he had only just learned to speak his heart. Yes, had in Floselwand session. I heard the quiver in his voice. The helplessness. The reluctance, but I was truly innocent. Xu Yanor. Let me be clear, I said firmly. From the day I left the Prime Minister's manor, all past grievances are smoke in the wind. I won't look back. Nor do I feel any attachment. I voiced the thoughts in my heart. For some reason, I didn't want him to be sad or to misunderstand me. We stood silently, our eyes reflecting one another. A shared smile passed between us, saying more than words ever could. When we grow up, I'll ride a white horse and take Mile in on journeys across mountains and rivers, tasting all the world's delicacies. All right. Xu Yanor. You mustn't break that promise. Two childish voices echoed in my memory. Yes, before the Crown Prince entered my life, I had already known Xu Yanor. Time passed swiftly. After the day the Crown Prince left, he didn't trouble me again. Slowly, my affairs faded from the capital's gossip. One afternoon, I sat with my mother under the osmanthus tree in our courtyard, the fragrance filling the air. Yarn burst into the rear garden with her maid, and upon seeing me nestled against my mother, she jeered in envy. Oh, how touching a mother and daughter. Truly befitting a merchant's daughter, you reek of copper coins. All of you. I could not have imagined that she would insult not only me, but also the woman who had raised her for 16 years. I stood and retorted sharply. Yes. Our family smells of coin. But in these 16 years, while eating, drinking, sleeping, and living here, how come you never noticed? Are your senses gone? You. I. You what? I what? If you think this place reeks of money, then leave. Don't block the view. I shot back without restraint. Her composure faltered, and she muttered weakly. I came back to see my mother. Unlike you, whose parents raised you for 16 years. Yet you leave without a glance back, heartless and ungrateful, claiming to be the paragon of noble ladies in the capital? So this was her attempt to shame me. In my previous life, she had wanted me back in the manor, forbidding my presence before the Prime Minister and his wife. Now, after my rebirth, everything had changed, but this remained her excuse for humiliation. Strange indeed. I sneered, calm and deliberate, and asked, You want me to return to the manor? To continue being their daughter? Aren't you afraid I'll take your favor? Yarn stepped back, her eyes flickering with panic and fear. Yes, she was afraid. If I returned, not only would the Prime Minister and his wife's favor be at stake, but even the Crown Prince's engagement could slip from her grasp. I had guessed correctly, she sought to humiliate me. In that case, perhaps I should claim a little interest. If Miss Yarn wants me to visit them, how could I refuse? You're right, they raised me for 16 years. Such a debt I can never repay in this lifetime. Oh, I remember now. That day, the Prime Minister and his wife came to me. They said I was their dearest daughter. Even the Crown Prince came, saying he would petition the Emperor to arrange the marriage. They treat me so well. How could I be cold and distant? I should return, it's all rightfully mine. I spoke on, ignoring the furious expression darkening Yarn's face. She had been enraged, unable to deliver further insults, and spun on her heel to leave. Throughout, she had never spared my mother a glance, let alone a greeting. My mother sat beside me, watching our verbal sparring silently. She had raised Yarn for 16 years. Yet Yarn wouldn't even offer a courteous word had she been a dog. It would have wagged its tail in recognition after 16 years. Indeed, how could she compare to a dog? Dogs are loyal. And yet, she was less than that. These days, as long as no one came to trouble me, hadn't fulfilled my obsession, I could enjoy my stolen hours of leisure. As the saying goes, what you fear comes to pass. 2 days before the double ninth banquet, the palace sent an invitation issued by the Empress herself. Why? What charm could a merchant's daughter like me possibly hold to merit an invitation from the lady of the inner court? My mother had never attended a palace banquet before. Fearing she might falter and misstep, I chose not to bring her. This year's banquet was like any other. Except for the chrysanthemums. Blooming late and more beautifully than ever. As if they were competing in splendor. The double ninth banquet was jointly hosted by the emperor and empress. And my seat, as in previous years, was next to the princess. I frowned. Surely a eunuch arranging the seats had erred. A merchant's daughter sitting beside a princess, such audacity. I moved toward the back, finding a corner to sit alone. Everyone looked puzzled at my actions. Exchanging glances. These were former friends and sisters of mine. This display, alas, having so sold my and sigh, was humiliating. His Majesty arrives. The Empress arrives. A scream rang out. Everyone quickly knelt. Shouting in unison, "Long live the Emperor! Long live the Empress! Rise!" boomed a solemn, commanding voice from above. All offered thanks and rose awkwardly. When everyone had seated themselves, the Empress's gaze swept to my place. Seeing the empty seat, she asked, "The young lady of the Prime Minister's manor, is she not here?" Yarn quickly stood, her pride evident. "Your Majesty, I am here." The Empress glanced at her, shook her head, and said, "I know. You are the daughter the Prime Minister later reclaimed." I asked about Myelin. I understood the Empress was addressing me. For survival, I had no choice but to stand. Your Majesty, I am here." My clear voice rang through the hall, drawing every gaze toward me once more. "Oh, Myelin, why are you sitting at the back? Come and usher in waiter. This seat was arranged for you." The Empress urged. The seat? Could I dare sit there? So many daughters of officials and noble families were lined up behind me. Was this just putting me on display? Roasting me alive? Well, no matter, I had chosen to sit at the back, so I would face reality with courage. I answered the Empress timidly. Your Majesty, I am merely the daughter of merchants. I must not break protocol by sitting in front." Though my voice was small, every corner of the hall could hear my blatant disrespect. Having spoken, I trembled uncontrollably. I was scared. I had just reached the palace and knew nothing of etiquette, yet I had only followed the rules. I cherished my life. The Empress's face turned a deep shade of iron. Clearly, she was angered, furious. And all because I dared follow protocol instead of obeying her. The Emperor, sensing the awkward tension, allowed me to sit in a corner to diffuse the situation. The palace banquet began, with attendees displaying their talents: music, chess, calligraphy, having fulfilled my eye, painting, singing, dancing, even the challenging art of shadow puppetry. I had little interest in these performances and quietly slipped out of the main hall, heading toward the chrysanthemum garden. Plum blossoms bloom in the cold, unyielding. Orchids, pale and fragrant. Humble gentlemen. Bamboo endures winter. Upright and resilient. Chrysanthemums brave frost alone. Serene and unbending. Facing the golden sea of flowers. I murmured to myself. No sooner had I finished speaking than a clear, crisp applause came from behind me. Brother Shu Yanor, what are you doing here? I turned to see him smiling warmly. It was stuffy in there. Seeing you sneak out, I followed, he said, laughter dancing in his eyes. We strolled together through the blossoms, reminiscing about our childhood. He reminded me how we used to play house, and that I had promised to be his bride one day, though I was too young to remember it then. Why did he bring it up now? Last time, he had told me to consider him first. Could it be that I am the one he loves? I gazed at the boy speaking so earnestly, his cheeks flushed by the sunset, and mustered the courage to ask, Brother Shu Yanor, do you have feelings for me? He paused, then tenderly stroked my head, his voice gentle. Myelin, ever since you promised to be my bride, my heart has belonged to you. All these years, while you followed the crown prince, I pretended not to care, so that you could be happy. Love, can it truly be hidden? No looking back, I had trailed after the crown prince, unaware that Shu Yan had always followed me. Not the prince. He was circling me all along. Once, having fulfilled my obsession, When the daughter of the minister's household made me cry, he had also made her cry. Once, when the third prince pulled my hair, he grabbed the prince's hair in return. In hindsight, all the signs were there. He had cared for me all along. In my past life, how blind I had been, rejecting such a man for that faithless wretch. Tears streamed down my face as I threw myself into Xu Yan'or's arms, broad, warm, safe. A sudden bang came from behind the artificial hill. Startled, we approached to see what had happened. I saw a bloodied body sprawled near the hill, the wound still bleeding, her chest rising and falling. She was alive. I wanted to help, but my head throbbed with pain. Sharp and relentless, and vivid memories from my past life surged forth. I clutched my chest, burying my head in my knees, biting my arm to steady myself. Xu Yan'or held me, soothing my panic with soft words. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm here. Just those 3 words stabilized the storm of fear inside me. Tears filled my eyes. I remembered everything. The injured woman before me was the crown prince's wet nurse. In my past life, she had also been murdered on this very day. Back then, I had been strolling alone to the flower garden, overhearing the commotion before daring to approach. Initially, Hanin fulfilled my expectation. The wet nurse was still clinging to life. Just like now. I wanted to call for help, to save her, but she gripped my hair with deathly force, giving me no chance. She never let go until the end. When she died, palace attendants reported to the empress. Upon arriving, everyone saw me struggling with her hand and assumed I had killed her. Some even claimed they saw me arguing with her, and that I had thrown the murder weapon into the grass. When the weapon was recovered, it was the dagger the crown prince had given me for protection. Thus, I was accused of murder on the spot. The crown prince, ignoring all evidence, berated and humiliated me. I tried to defend myself by invoking our engagement, but in the end, he resolved to annul it and marry Yarn instead. In my past life, how foolish I had been, constantly seeking the crown prince's trust while drowning in grief over losing him, ignoring the palace maid who had falsely accused me. And my dagger, how had it ended up in the palace? Someone must have framed me. Who had the opportunity to take it and provoke me to lead the main hall? Yes, I had overlooked a critical piece of information. Your Ani had willingly stepped aside. Yet you still clung to it. Ignoring the wet nurse's body, I relied on my past life memory to retrieve the dagger. Seeing no one around, I threw it into the river and grabbed Xu Yan'or to run. With no evidence left, this assassination could only be traced back to the perpetrator. This time, I wanted to see how the crown prince would avenge his wet nurse. After leaving the artificial hill, Xu Yan'or and I sat in the chrysanthemum sea, having fulfilled my ibsa. Chatting leisurely, unconcerned with onlookers or who might discover the wet nurse's body. An hour later, the patrolling soldiers finally discovered the disturbance. Suspecting an assassin, they went on full alert. After a long while, the empress and the crown prince arrived, accompanied by a grand entourage Yarn among them. When the crown prince learned that the deceased was his wet nurse, he flew into a rage and shouted to the eunuchs beside him, "Investigate this thoroughly." He was nearly hysterical. It was just a wet nurse. Why such deep grief? Such erratic behavior? Perhaps in the depths of the palace, a wet nurse had offered care no one else could provide. After 2 hours of questioning, attention fell on a palace maid named Yor. The empress ordered a search both of her person and her quarters. Amid the guards' chaotic rummaging, they found some valuable items in Yor's room. There were quite a few, including to bestowed by imperial decree. Yor panicked. She dared not implicate Yarn. And in her flustered state, she pointed a finger at me. In my previous life, I had been too attached to the crown prince, too reckless, and it had cost me dearly. This time, I would not be so foolish. Before I could even speak to defend myself, Xu Yan'or stepped in front of me. We left the hall together. Mylin and I. After we left, we stayed outside, enjoying the flowers. Yor, the palace maid, froze. She had dared to accuse me. She couldn't possibly also accuse the heir of the Jingyuan marquis. That would seal her fate. She fell heavily to her knees, stammering, It was the young lady of the Prime Minister's manor who ordered it. The imperial items in my quarters can prove it. At the mention of Yarn, the Prime Minister's wife staggered back to steps. Just moments ago, when Yer had pointed at me, she had maintained composure, but now, with her own daughter implicated, panic took hold. I observed the flustered reaction carefully. I admit, my heart sank. Blood ties always carry weight, even over affection. The Empress examined the imperial items and ordered the eunuchs to verify the records. Soon, Manado Lo Sai. It was confirmed these were gifts from the Emperor to the Prime Minister's manor. Yarn, sensing her exposure, hurriedly tried to defend herself. No, it wasn't me. Mile-in did it. She even brought me the imperial items. Her voice wavered with tears. I knew she was close to breaking. Since she had so boldly tried to pin this on me, I would not let the lesson pass unacknowledged. Calmly, cutting Fosel Mayam Sai, I explained. Your Majesty, when I left the manor, I took only a few personal garments. I did not take any other items. Moreover, these 2 items were locked in the storage. Without the madam's permission, how could I have obtained them? Combined with Shu Yan'or's testimony, the Empress believed me utterly. She turned her gaze to Yarn, scolding sharply. I never imagined that the esteemed Prime Minister's manor would allow such a reckless daughter to wreak havoc in the palace. The crime is grave. In respect to the Prime Minister's diligent service, I will report this to the Emperor before deciding on the punishment. Detain Yarn immediately. The guard stepped forward and took Yarn away. On the way, she struggled and threatened that the Prime Minister would rescue her and that those who detained her would suffer in turn. With a final decree, Yarn was escorted away by the imperial guards. The Prime Minister's wife scrambled to my side, clutching my ankles, sobbing. Mile-in, you have a close relationship with the Crown Prince and the Empress. Go plead for Yarn. It's the least you can do to repay the 16 years of her motherly care. I thought to help her up, reasoning that matters could be negotiated slowly. But she refused stubbornly. Desperately. Her hysterical cries drew the attention of onlookers. And the Empress's gaze fixed on me. Yes, I could appeal to the Empress, but at what cost? I had only just gained her favor in the hall. If I went to petition now, what price would she demand? The Empress's cold gaze held a faint, barely perceptible disdain. I steadied myself and considered the situation. A recently reclaimed daughter from the Prime Minister's manor, how likely was it that palace maids could easily be bribed? Even if so, why had the patrolling soldiers taken so long to discover the plot? There was clearly a hidden hand pushing events forward, but was it meant to eliminate me? Were the Prime Minister's 2 daughters? Before I could react further, the Prime Minister himself arrived in haste. He must have run too quickly, for sweat beaded on his forehead. Through the crowd, I saw his wife kneeling at my feet, softly sobbing. The absurdity of a foster mother kneeling to a foster daughter stunned him into action. Without asking for the facts, he waited for me to approach. I froze, my feet forgetting to move. I stared at the man who had once spoiled me, now ready to strike without reason. And despair consumed me. Just as his large hand was about to descend upon my pale face, Shu Yan'or shoved him aside, positioning me safely behind him. His eyes blazed with a threat as he addressed the Prime Minister. I honor you, Prime Minister, not out of fear, but for your service to the court, and for raising Mile-in for 16 years. If you dare lay a hand on her, I will repay tenfold, no matter the cost. Shu Yan'or's words were commanding, and warmth spread through me, dissolving the disappointment I had just felt. Anger and a feral protectiveness radiated from his brow, a side of him I had never seen. I had never imagined he would go to such lengths for me. Autumn winds whispered, the sky high and clear, carrying the scent of chrysanthemums and fruit. The sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, painting a crimson hue across the sky. The Prime Minister shook his trembling right hand, glared at me, then turned to the Empress with a fawning tone. Your Majesty, there is still something suspicious about the young lady's matter. I beg your Majesty to investigate and restore her innocence. Xiang Yl second to none, with disciples and influence stretching across court and country. Yet even he had to report back to the Emperor. The Empress, realizing this, simply nodded and led her party away from the battlefield. Once she departed, the princess followed, casting a provocatively sharp glance at me before leaving. The princess's birth mother was the empress herself, which meant every word and action of the princess was tacitly approved by her. So why would the empress want to remove her? She was merely the daughter of merchants. The crown prince, being the empress's adopted son, was closest to his wet nurse. To kill her was to strike at the prince's very heart. Anyone who harmed her became his enemy. But how did this relate to the empress targeting me? I could not understand. Why was all of this happening? Eleanor escorted me home, and by evening, I returned to my room, heavy with thought. My brother and mother, worried about my health, pressed Eleanor with countless questions about the palace banquet. Had they not asked, I might have been spared, but when they did, the revelations were startling. Listening to Eleanor's recounting, my mother was shaken, her face pale with fear. My brother, worldly and well-informed, acquainted with children of officials, had already heard rumors about my engagement. Eleanor's brief explanations gave him a clearer picture. My brother had some dealings with the imperial uncle's illegitimate son, Yang Zhong, who had mentioned that the empress intended to place his eldest legitimate sister in the palace as crown princess. Now that my engagement with the crown prince had been annulled, and he refused to marry Yan, the empress's niece had a golden opportunity. But the crown prince adamantly refused to marry the empress's niece, petitioning the emperor to restore our engagement instead, which infuriated the empress. Hearing this, Eleanor understood immediately, and as I listened to my brother, the truth began to crystallize in my mind. Today's events, seemingly aimed at removing me, were in fact meant to remove both Yan and me, while also forcing the crown prince to abandon hope of marrying me, and accept the empress's niece instead. Single plan achieving three aims. How cunning the empress truly was. In my past life, I had been manipulated by so many. I had thought it was my recklessness that brought death upon me. Now I realized I had been a pawn in a political game. In the past, I had no escape. Now that I knew everything, could I still avoid it? Eleanor's easygoing nature quickly won my brother over. They became fast friends. My mother liked him too, even insisting he stay for dinner. Yan was soon released. The one who had died was a servant. The emperor paid it no mind. He would not risk offending the chancellor over a mere underling. In the crown prince's dimly lit study, flickering candlelight revealed his face twisted with rage, his eyes full of bitterness. The secret guards had just reported that the wet nurse's case was more complicated than it appeared. These days, Yan had frequently visited the princess's quarters, and the crown prince had pieced much of it together. His wet nurse had been killed at someone else's hand, and yet his father had let the perpetrator go. Only the chancellor's plea, having fulfilled my upset, and perhaps some word from the crown prince's eldest sister, had prevented immediate punishment. Good. 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 The crown prince laughed maniacally. So all of this had been sanctioned by his adoptive mother. No wonder, she seemed so composed during the day, orchestrating events exactly as she planned. She had only miscalculated one thing. She had not anticipated my being with Eleanor. After the banquet, I hinted to Eleanor that as long as I remained unwed, trouble would continue to seek me out. Persuading his parents, he soon secured my formal betrothal, with parental approval, matchmakers, and the 3 letters and 6 rights. Eleanor and I were officially engaged. On the day of our engagement, I wrote a letter to be delivered to the chancellor's household. They were my foster parents, and their kindness in raising me outweighed all grievances, no matter the past or how they had wronged me. On this special day, I wanted them to know. Unexpectedly, the crown prince appeared, speaking the same empty words of love and longing as before. Watching his hypocritical face, I understood that he was simply unwilling to accept my departure without a fight. This man's nature was base. The less I showed care, the more he valued me. In my past life, I had held him in my hands, yet he could not see. After sending him away, the Marquis of Jingyuan sent over gifts and the official marriage documents. Eleanor and I inscribed our names on them and had them delivered to the government office with the seals affixed. My betrothal was settled. The wedding set for 2 weeks later. My mother busied herself preparing my attire from head to toe, crafting every piece herself, including the bridal gown. Everything between Xu Yan'er and me was now set in stone. Yet, one morning just a few days later, the doors of our home were violently struck. Bang. Bang, Mudado Lo Sai. Bang. Cuir opened the door to find Lemore, drenched in blood, collapsed on the threshold. Lemore had been a caretaker for me since childhood, serving the Chancellor's wife. Seeing her now, covered in blood, panic surged through me, and I hurried to carry her inside. Half an hour later, she regained consciousness. Trembling as she gripped my hand, Master Xion, Madame Mud, young master, and Miss Yar are dead. The news was truly shocking. I could not fathom why it had happened. Overnight, nearly an entire household had been wiped out. I steadied my emotions. As the Prime Minister's foster daughter, it was my duty to return, tend to the dead, and pay respects. Though the Gong Yl family had other branches, I considered this my way of repaying 16 years of their care. When Cuir and I arrived at the Prime Minister's manor, officials from the Ministry of Justice were handling the bodies. 6 or 7 members of the household had perished. Only Lemore had survived. As for Yarn, she had been violated to death. Who could have been so ruthless? With the manor destroyed, my own wedding was delayed. Xu Yan'er not only supported my vigil for the Prime Minister but also accompanied me, honoring their family together. The truth behind the massacre eluded even the Ministry of Justice, and fear rippled through the capital. Thinking of the weight of past events, I sensed the present path diverged sharply from my previous life. A major incident was imminent. I discussed it with my brother, and we decided to send our parents to Jianghan for safety. Xu Yan'er, heir of the Jingyuan marquis, was determined this time. I would not shy away. I would face whatever was coming alongside him. The calm before the storm was eerily oppressive. Xu Yan'er and I sat in a tea house, talking about recent changes in the palace, when suddenly a covert agent appeared, whispered something in his ear, and vanished. Xu Yan'er drained his cup and turned to me. Grade, the Crown Prince has mutinied. Since his departure that day, Xu Yan'er had left a few secret guards to protect me, while he joined the effort to quell the rebellion. The war raged for over 10 days. One night, I heard the clash of swords outside and panicked. Half an hour later, the Crown Prince's wooden commander captured me. Blindfolded and gagged, plunged into darkness. I had no idea where I was being taken. The surroundings were unnervingly quiet, even eerie. After an indeterminate time, I was brought to a vast plaza, crowded with people. The sun scorched down, and a blade pressed against my neck. Mile in. Mile in. Xu Yan'er's voice called from afar. I struggled, but my bindings were tight. We traversed a long path and climbed steep steps before halting. The blindfold was removed, as was the gag. My eyes, long shut, squinted painfully under the harsh sunlight. Before me stood the Crown Prince, his face pale, his body riddled with wounds, his garments soaked in blood. Stubble had grown long, and the dark bruising beneath his eyes could not be concealed. If it were my previous life, perhaps I would have felt pity, but now, all I felt was that he deserved it. And here he was, dragging me along without a clue as to his intent. He pulled me close and shouted to Xu Yan'er. Xu Yan'er, she's in my hands. If you lay down your weapon, I will release her. I met the Crown Prince's gaze. Xu Yan'er stood firm, sword in hand. Reinforcements were few on both sides. The emperor was shielded by the Jingyuan marquis, and the contest now was which aid would arrive first. Near the emperor lay the empress's lifeless body. Perhaps she had been abandoned and in the fray. Torn between love and duty, Xu Yan'er's brow furrowed. How was he to choose? Seeing Xu Yan'er silent, the Crown Prince pressed the blade to my neck. Warm blood trickled down my fair skin. Vivid and horrifying. Let her go. How can you make her bear the burden of men's conflicts? Xu Yan'er shouted in a frenzy. He had lost control. Without the guards restraining him, he might have charged recklessly. I wept. Never had I seen him so unsteady. In all my memory, he had always been composed. Now, panic consumed him. Fear gripped me too. If Xu Yan'or truly resisted, what fate would befall him under the brutal, ascending crown prince? And what of the people of the realm? I smiled, feeling the sunlight above for the first time as warmth that seeped into my very bones. I looked at Xu Yan'or and called out, "Brother Xu Yan'or, having you in this life is enough. May you be safe and joyful. I love you." Those words echoed across the sky. Tears streamed from my eyes. Yet I met the crown prince's blade with a smile. "No, Mylin." Both the crown prince and Xu Yan'or cried out as I fell. My vision blurred. And so, my life seemed to close. Without threat, Xu Yan'or channeled his grief into strength, swiftly crushing the rebels and restoring order. When I awoke 3 months later, Xu Yan'or had been at my side each day, reading me countless stories. Each day a new tale. My brother too, wherever he went, brought back fresh gifts. Even if I had not awakened, they would have prepared these for me. The year had turned. On the day I awoke, Lantern Festival, the 15th day of the first month, celebrations rang throughout the city. Xu Yan'or read to me in my chamber. And listening to his voice, tears slid down my cheeks. The first person I saw upon opening my eyes was him. We smiled at each other. A quiet, shared joy. Fortune had spared me from the crown prince's blade, just excessive blood loss. Nothing more. Later, Xu Yan'or and I wed, together with my brother. We journeyed far and wide, traversing the realm and witnessing all its splendor. "Daisy, let's get a divorce." Daisy was hanging military uniforms in the yard when she heard those words. The clothes she was holding slipped from her hands and fell to the ground with a soft thud. She turned around and saw the man standing at the door. His tall, upright figure was dressed in military attire, the stars on his epaulets glittering under the sunlight. This was her husband, Colonel Adrian. "What did you say?" Daisy's voice trembled. Adrian stepped forward, his gaze complex as he looked at her. "I said, we're getting a divorce." Daisy felt a buzzing in her head, as if struck by lightning. The memories of her past life surged in a tidal wave. This man had said the same words to her, in the same place, with the same tone. Back then, she had begged him in tears, asking why. He said it was to protect her, that someone in higher authority was out to get him, and that getting divorced would spare her from being dragged into it. She believed him, foolishly going along with the charade of a fake divorce. But less than 3 months after their divorce, he married the daughter of the political commissar of his division. That woman was younger, more educated, more eloquent than her. And she, a woman from a rural background with only a primary school education, was cast aside with nowhere to go. She had wandered for 10 years. Hearing that Adrian had risen through the ranks, becoming a division commander, a corps commander, and eventually the deputy commander of a military region. And she died in a car accident at the age of 42. When she died, she thought to herself, if she had the chance to do it all over again, she would never believe that man's lies. To her astonishment, fate had indeed given her that chance. "Why do you want a divorce?" Daisy asked, her voice unusually calm. Adrian was taken aback by her reaction. In his memory, Daisy would have cried, thrown a tantrum, and demanded endless explanations. But today, her eyes were disturbingly clear. "They're investigating me from above, and I'm worried it will implicate you," Adrian said, repeating the same old line. "The divorce is just a temporary measure. Once the storm blows over, we can—" "Fine," Daisy interrupted him. Adrian froze. "What?" I said fine. I agree to the divorce. When do we go to handle the paperwork? Daisy's lips even curved into a faint smile. This reaction completely caught Adrian off guard. He had expected a drawn-out struggle, had prepared a whole speech to comfort her. But she agreed so quickly? You really agree?" Adrian asked, disbelieving. "Of course. I'm not unreasonable," Daisy said with a smile. "Since it's for my own good, how could I hold you back?" A strange feeling stirred inside Adrian. Something felt off, but he couldn't pinpoint it. Logically, he should be relieved that Daisy agreed so easily. But why did he feel empty inside? "Well, then let's go tomorrow to take care of it," Adrian said. "All right." Daisy nodded. But there's a condition. What condition? The house was bought with my dowry money. So it stays with me after the divorce. And you give me 1,000 yuan as compensation for all these years. 1,000 yuan in 1975 was no small amount. It was equivalent to several months of Adrian's salary. Daisy, you're asking for... Adrian frowned. What? You can't bear it? Daisy sneered. Adrian, I've been with you for 5 years. From a naive 18-year-old girl to a worn-out 23-year-old woman. For 5 years. I took care of you. Cooked, cleaned, and followed you everywhere for your promotions. Now you want to discard me. And you think giving me 1,000 yuan is too much? Adrian was left speechless. It was true that Daisy had sacrificed a lot for him over the years. And asking for 1,000 yuan didn't seem unreasonable. Fine. I'll give it to you. Adrian gritted his teeth. Agreeing. Daisy nodded in satisfaction. Then it settled. By the way, I heard the political commissar's daughter, Snow, has been coming to our division a lot lately. I heard she's a university student and quite attractive. Adrian's face immediately darkened. What do you mean by that? Nothing. Just making small talk, Daisy said with a faint smile. Anyway, once we're divorced tomorrow, who you marry has nothing to do with me. With that, she turned and entered the house, leaving Adrian standing in the yard, his expression dark as a storm was brewing. Inside, Daisy sat on the bed, her mind coldly mocking. Snow. In her past life, you became Adrian's bride just 3 months after the divorce. This time, I want to see if you'll get what you want. She rummaged through a wooden box under the bed and pulled out a small cloth pouch. Inside, it contained a few large notes and some change, along with several bank books. These were the private savings she had accumulated over the years. Money Adrian knew nothing about. In her past life, when she divorced, she foolishly left this money for Adrian, telling him it was for his travel expenses. This time, she wouldn't make the same mistake. 1,000 yuan, along with her private savings, would be enough for her to buy a small house in the city and start a small business to support herself. She remembered that the reform and opening up was just around the corner, and there would be plenty of business opportunities. As Daisy counted the money in her hands, she felt an unprecedented sense of relief. She thanked heaven for giving her a second chance. This time, she would live for herself. Footsteps from the next room signaled Adrian pacing back and forth. He was clearly troubled. Having spent the night unable to sleep, sensing something was wrong. Daisy's response had been too strange. She should have cried and begged, but instead, she was more composed than him. Daisy sneered coldly. This was just the beginning. The real drama was yet to come. Chapter 2. The next morning, Daisy got up early to pack her things. She packed her clothes and some important belongings into 2 suitcases, leaving everything else behind. Adrian watched her swift movements, and his discomfort grew. He hadn't slept well the night before, feeling something was off. Daisy's reaction was too unusual. She should have cried or shown reluctance. But instead, she appeared even more at ease than he was. You're really moving out? Adrian asked. Why not? After the divorce, would we still live together and make a joke of it? Daisy didn't look up as she continued packing. But where will you go? Don't worry about it. Daisy zipped up her suitcase and stood up. Let's go and take care of the divorce paperwork first. At the Civil Affairs Bureau, the clerk looked at their files with surprise. The man was a division commander, and the woman, although from a rural background, was quite beautiful. They didn't look like a couple who were getting divorced. Are you sure you want a divorce? The clerk asked. Sure. Daisy replied, answering before Adrian could speak. What's the reason for the divorce? Personality differences. Daisy answered crisply. The clerk glanced at Adrian, who nodded. The procedure was completed quickly, and their marriage certificates were cut in half. Daisy took the divorce certificate, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, Adrian suddenly grabbed her arm. Daisy. I don't say anything. Daisy wrenched her arm free. We're divorced now. Let's part on good terms. Where's the 1,000 yuan you promised me? Adrian took out a stack of cash and handed it to her. Daisy counted at exactly 1,000 yuan. "Thank you," she said, stuffing the money into her bag. "Well then. Goodbye." She finished speaking, grabbed her luggage, and walked away without looking back. Adrian stood rooted to the spot, watching her retreating figure, a sense of panic surging in his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that this parting was different from all the others. In the past, whenever Daisy was angry, it would only take her a few days to come looking for him. But this time, Daisy went straight to the train station, her luggage in tow. She was heading to the provincial capital, where she remembered having a distant cousin. In her previous life, she had also sought refuge with this cousin. But at that time, she had been penniless and had received a lot of disdain. This time, however, things were different. She had money and a plan. She had bought a ticket for the afternoon train and sat in the waiting area, mentally planning her next steps. She had some connections in the provincial capital. Not many, but enough to get her on her feet. As she was lost in thought, she suddenly heard someone calling her name from behind. "Daisy? Is that really you?" Daisy turned around and saw a middle-aged man in a cadet uniform walking toward her. It was someone she knew, Victor, the chief of staff from Adrian's unit. "Victor," Daisy said, standing up to greet him. Victor glanced at her luggage and then at her casual clothes. His expression puzzled. "Are you going far? Where's Adrian?" "We got a divorce," Daisy said flatly. Victor froze. "What? How did you two divorce?" "Personality differences," Daisy replied, sticking to the same line. "No, Daisy. You two always seem to get along so well. How could you just divorce? Is there some misunderstanding?" Victor asked, his voice full of concern. Daisy shook her head. "No misunderstanding. It's a decision we've thought through carefully." Victor seemed like he wanted to say more. But at that moment, her train pulled into the station. "Victor, I have to go," Daisy said, picking up her luggage. "If Adrian asks, tell him you don't know where I went." With that, she squeezed into the crowd. Victor wanted to chase after her, but the crowd was too thick, and soon she was lost to his sight. On the train, Daisy found her seat and sat down. The scenery outside the window quickly faded as the train sped along. She knew that this time, when she left, she wouldn't be coming back. "Adrian, I won't live as a widow for you this lifetime. If you want to marry Snow, go ahead. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness." By evening, Adrian returned home from work, only to find the house eerily empty. Daisy's belongings were gone. He searched every corner. Not even a teacup she had used was left behind. Suddenly, a thought struck him. He hurried to the kitchen and opened the small wooden box. It was empty. Daisy's secret savings were gone too. Adrian collapsed onto the bed, an overwhelming emptiness flooding his chest. The house, once familiar, now felt strange. Chapter 3. Heiress. Daisy's cousin in the provincial capital lived in an old-fashioned tenement building. The apartment wasn't large, but it was well located, right in the city center. Daisy arrived after 8 in the evening, and Iris was surprised to see her. "Daisy? What are you doing here? Where's Adrian?" Iris opened the door and let her in. "I got a divorce," Daisy replied straightforwardly. "I want to stay here for a few days and find a job to settle down." Iris's eyes widened. "A divorce? But you two seemed fine." "It's a long story," Daisy said, sitting down. "I won't stay here for free. Here's 30 yuan. As rent." She took 30 yuan from her bag and placed it on the table. Iris's expressions off, and when she saw the money. Last time, when Daisy came to seek refuge, she had nothing and had been treated with coldness. This time, things were different. Money made everything easier. "What kind of work are you planning to do?" Iris asked. "I'll start with a temporary job, then see if there are any other opportunities," Daisy replied. Iris nodded. "We have a friend at the street office. Tomorrow, I'll take you to ask about it." The next day, Daisy found a job at the street office, working as a temporary worker for the neighborhood committee, mostly doing odds and ends. The salary wasn't much, only 25 yuan a month, but for Daisy, it was enough. Her real goal wasn't this job but using this position to learn about the market. She remembered that before long, the winds of reform and opening up would sweep through, and doing business would become legal. What she needed to do now was accumulate money and connections. After a week of work, Daisy discovered a business opportunity. There were many state-run stores on the street, but the selection was limited, and they often ran out of stock. Basic necessities like soap, laundry powder, and towels were in constant short supply. If she could get a hold of these supplies, she knew she could make money. Daisy began asking around and, by chance, learned that there was a small factory in the suburbs that produced these daily necessities but had trouble selling them, resulting in a stockpile. The factory manager, an honest man in his 40s, was skeptical when Daisy approached him with an offer to buy his products in bulk. "Little comrade, can you really sell all this?" Felix asked, uncertain. "Felix? Just tell me what price you're asking." Daisy cut to the chase. Felix quoted a price that was 30% lower than the state-run store's wholesale price. Daisy immediately agreed, ordering a batch of goods and paying half the deposit. The next challenge was finding buyers. Taking advantage of her position at the neighborhood committee, Daisy reached out to several supply and marketing cooperatives and small shops in the area. They were all short on stock, and when they heard about the cheap daily necessities, they quickly placed orders. The first batch sold out quickly, and Daisy made a profit of over 200 yuan. Iris was stunned when she saw the money. "Daisy, what kind of business are you doing? How is it so profitable?" "Sis, it's not the right time to talk about it," Daisy said, putting the money away. "When the time's right, I'll tell you." While Daisy's business was thriving, things were far from calm for Adrian. Ever since Daisy left, his mood had been terrible. He kept making mistakes at work, and his superiors had already called him in for several talks. To make matters worse, Snow began showing up around him more often. When Daisy was still around, he could keep his distance. But now that they were divorced, Snow had become bolder. "Adrian, I heard you got divorced?" Snow stopped him again after work one day. "Yeah," Adrian replied absently. "Living alone must be tough." "Huh? How about I take care of you?" Snow said, her eyes full of shy expectation. Adrian looked at her, but his mind couldn't help but drift back to thoughts of Daisy. Strangely enough, he realized that he felt nothing for the young, beautiful college student standing before him. "I'm fine. I can take care of myself," Adrian said. Snow looked disappointed but didn't give up. "Adrian, why don't I cook you a meal tomorrow? It's Sunday." "No need," Adrian replied firmly. Snow bit her lip. "Adrian, are you still thinking about her?" "Thinking about who?" "Your ex-wife? A woman from a rural background with only a primary school education. What's there to think about?" Snow's tone was filled with clear disdain. "I'm a university graduate, much more educated than her. And I'm younger and more beautiful, too." Upon hearing this, Adrian suddenly erupted in anger. "Enough." His voice thundered. "Who Daisy is doesn't give you the right to comment on her." Snow was startled by his outburst, and tears instantly filled her eyes. "Adrian, you went out a low sigh. You're shouting at me?" "Yes, I'm shouting at you." Adrian glared at her coldly. "Don't come to me again. I have no feelings for you." With that, he turned on his heel and left, leaving Snow standing there in tears. Back home, Adrian stood in the empty house, a wave of regret flooding over him like never before. He began to long for the days when Daisy was there, her cooking, the way she hung his uniforms in the yard, the image of her mending his military uniforms under the dim light. But now, it was all too late. Chapter 4. 2 months later, Daisy's business was thriving. She not only took on all of Felix's goods but had also reached out to several small factories, forming a small sales network. One day, while she was busy with inventory at the shop, she suddenly heard someone calling her name at the door. "Daisy." Daisy looked up and saw Victor, with a young officer beside him, a battalion commander by the looks of his epaulets. "Victor?" Daisy was surprised. "What brings you here?" "I'm here for a meeting in the provincial capital and heard you were here." So I thought I'd drop by and see you. Victor glanced around the small shop. So you're in business now? Yes, having fulfilled my session. Just a small trade to make ends meet. Daisy said inferiorly. Victor nodded before asking. Daisy, is there really no chance for you and Adrian to reconcile? Daisy was momentarily stunned. Victor, what do you mean by that? I can tell Adrian regrets it. Since you two divorced, he's changed. He's been distracted at work, and even the division commander has talked to him a few times. Snow is always around him, but he shows no interest in her at all. At this, a complicated mix of emotions stirred inside Daisy. In her past life, Adrian had married Snow just 3 months after their divorce. How had things changed now? Victor, our divorce was mutual. Since we divorced, we won't be getting back together, Daisy said resolutely. Daisy, don't be so stubborn. Victor said gently. I know Adrian made mistakes in the past, but now he really regrets it. You were together for 5 years, there's still some affection left. Affection? Daisy sneered. If there was affection, would he have asked for a divorce? That's because. Victor tried to explain but was interrupted by Daisy. Victor, no matter the reason, a divorce is a divorce. I'm doing fine now. And I don't want to look back. Daisy's tone was firm. Victor looked at her, sighing. He could sense that Daisy was different now. The gentle, submissive Daisy he once knew had transformed into someone strong and resolute. So what if Adrian comes looking for you? Victor asked. He won't, Daisy said calmly. And even if he does, I won't see him. Victor knew there was no use continuing the conversation. He left his address before departing. Daisy, if you ever need anything, feel free to contact me. Daisy nodded and saw them out. Adrian did indeed want to find her. He had used all his connections to track down Daisy's whereabouts but had yet to gather the courage to see her. He knew he was wrong. When he first proposed the divorce, he had expected Daisy to cry, to beg him, to plead with him, so he could console her, explaining that it was a temporary measure. But instead, she had agreed so quickly, as if she had been waiting for this day. Now, every day, Adrian regretted it. He regretted asking for the divorce, regretted believing in the so-called political risks, and regretted betraying the woman who had been with him for 5 years. Snow was still clinging to him. But now, seeing her only irritated him. Apart from being young, beautiful, and educated, she was useless. She couldn't cook. She couldn't do laundry. And she didn't even know the basics of housekeeping. Her personality also repelled him, proud, willful, convivial, and condescending. In contrast, Daisy, though from a rural background and less educated, was kind, hardworking, and considerate. She kept the house in order, cared for him when he was sick, and silently supported him when he faced pressure at work. The more Adrian thought about it, the more he regretted it. Finally, having fulfilled he mustered the courage to go to the provincial capital to find Daisy. He took 3 days off and bought a train ticket. Before leaving, Snow came to see him again. Adrian, I heard you're going on a business trip? Snow asked. Yes. Adrian packed his things absently. Where are you going? Can I come with you? Snow's eyes were full of expectation. Adrian paused in his actions and looked at her seriously. Snow, let me make this clear, I don't have any romantic feelings for you. You're a good girl, but you're not right for me. You're still young. You should find someone who truly loves you. Snow's face went pale in an instant. You too. You're rejecting me? Yes. Adrian nodded. I have someone else in my heart. And I have no plans to remarry at the moment. Is it your ex-wife? Snow spat, gritting her teeth. Adrian didn't respond. But his silence was the best answer. Tears welled up in Snow's eyes. But they quickly turned to anger. She's just a woman from the countryside, what makes her better than me? She's better than you in many ways. Adrian said coldly. At least she doesn't cling to me like you do. With that, he grabbed his luggage and left, leaving Snow standing there, stomping her feet in fury. Chapter 5. When Adrian arrived in the provincial capital, it was already past 2 in the afternoon. He quickly found Daisy's shop, following the address Victor had given him. Standing at the door, Adrian took a deep breath. Through the glass door, he saw Daisy, busy with a customer. She was wearing a clean blue work uniform, her hair neatly styled, speaking to a client. She looked healthy, more energetic than before. There was a confidence and ease about her that hadn't been there before. Adrian stood at the door for a long time, finally pushing the door open and stepping inside. "Welcome. How can I help you?" Daisy said without looking up. "Daisy." Adrian whispered her name. Hearing that familiar voice, Daisy's body stiffened for a moment. Then she slowly looked up. The moment their eyes met, a complicated emotion surged inside her. "What are you doing here?" Daisy's voice was calm. "I came to see you," Adrian said, looking her over. "You've lost weight." "No. I'm fine." Daisy continued arranging the goods. "What brings you here?" Adrian watched her indifferent attitude, and it felt like a knife cutting through his heart. The old Daisy would have lit up when she saw him, but now she looked at him like a stranger. "Daisy, can we talk?" Adrian asked. "There's nothing to talk about." Daisy didn't even lift her head. "You should go back. Your new bride is still waiting for you." "What new bride? I haven't remarried," Adrian quickly explained. Daisy finally looked up at him. "You haven't? Why?" "Because I still have feelings for you." Adrian gathered his courage and confessed. "Daisy, I was wrong. I shouldn't have asked for a divorce. I've regretted it every day these past few months." Daisy let out a cold laugh. "Regretting what?" "Regretting not being able to marry the political commissar's daughter?" "No," Adrian said urgently. "I never wanted to marry her. I asked for a divorce to protect you." "Protect me?" A hint of sarcasm flashed in Daisy's eyes. "Adrian, do you think I'm still that naive girl?" "Daisy, I know you don't believe me, but everything I'm saying is the truth." Adrian stepped forward, trying to take her hand, but she pulled away. "Do you know? Since you left, I realized how much I can't live without you. Without you, the house feels empty. Like there's no soul." Daisy looked at him, her heart a storm of emotions. In her previous life, she had longed to hear these words, but now, hearing them, she only felt bitter. "Adrian, if you truly can't live without me, then why did you ask for a divorce?" Daisy asked. I thought you wouldn't agree," Adrian stammered. "I thought you'd cry, throw a tantrum, and then I could comfort you. Tell you it was just a temporary measure." His voice grew quieter. "I never expected you to agree so readily." Hearing this, Daisy almost laughed. So, this was his plan all along, to protect his own career while keeping her around as his free maid. "So, you were trying to play hard to get?" Daisy asked. Adrian's face flushed red with embarrassment. I did think that at the time. But I really do love you." "Love me?" Daisy's voice dripped with obvious sarcasm. "If you love me, would you calculate against me? If you love me, would you sacrifice me for your future?" Adrian was left speechless by her questions. "Daisy, I'm doing well now. Please don't come to bother me again." Daisy turned back to her work. "The door's over there. Feel free to leave." Daisy hesitated. "I'm not leaving," Adrian shouted, desperate. "I won't marry Snow. Let's remarry. Okay? Remarry?" Daisy didn't even turn around. "Adrian, do you think that's possible?" "Why not?" Adrian said. "We've only been divorced for a few months. It's not too late. I promise, I'll never hurt you again." Daisy paused, turned to face him, and looked at him coldly. "What's your promise worth? When we got married, you promised to stay with me for life. And what happened?" Adrian opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. "Besides, even if you don't marry Snow now, there will still be Snow. Or some other Snow in the future." Daisy's eyes were as cold as ice. "Adrian, I've seen through you. To you, your future will always be more important than me." "No. Daisy. You're more important than anything," Adrian said, his voice full of emotion. "If I really were important, you wouldn't have asked for a divorce in the first place," Daisy said, her voice calm but firm. "Adrian, we're done. Please stop holding on to something that's already over. Adrian looked at her resolutely closed-off demeanor, and a wave of despair washed over him. It suddenly hit him he had truly lost her. And he had lost her forever. Chapter 6. Adrian stayed in the provincial capital for 3 days, visiting Daisy's store every day. But she remained as cold as ever towards him. Sometimes, when there were customers, she focused solely on serving them, completely ignoring his presence. Other times, when there were no customers, she would lower her head and focus on her own work, not speaking to him at all. On the third night, Adrian couldn't hold it in anymore. Daisy, do you really have no feelings left for me? Adrian asked. Daisy lifted her head and glanced at him. What feelings? The feelings of being schemed against by you? Or the feelings of being abandoned by you? I never schemed against you. And I never abandoned you. Adrian argued anxiously. At that time, someone was trying to frame me. And I was worried it would affect you. Really? Daisy sneered. Then tell me. Who was trying to frame you? When did it happen? Adrian froze. In truth, no one had been trying to frame him, it was just an excuse he had made up to marry Snow. Now that Daisy was asking, he didn't know how to respond. Well? Speak up. Daisy pressed. If someone was trying to frame you, there must have been a specific time and reason. Right? Adrian stammered, unable to say anything. Daisy's gaze grew colder. Can't answer. Huh? Daisy stood up. Adrian. Do you know what I hate the most? I hate being treated like a fool. When you made up that nonsense to deceive me, did you ever think that I'd wake up one day? Daisy. Adrian tried to explain. Don't say anything else. I understand everything. Daisy interrupted him. You should have just told me you wanted a divorce. Why make up all these reasons? Now that you see I'm doing well, you want to come back? Do you think I'm some piece of trash that you can toss aside and pick up again whenever you want? Adrian's face turned bright red as he stood there, unable to refute her. Because everything she said was the truth. Daisy. I admit I was wrong. But I really regret it now. Adrian said, his voice full of remorse. Please. Give me a chance. Let me start over. Okay? Start over? Daisy looked at him with no warmth in her eyes. Adrian. Some mistakes don't have a chance to be fixed. It's like a broken mirror, no matter how you piece it back together. It will never be the same. But we still have feelings for each other. Adrian protested, unwilling to give up. Feelings? Daisy shook her head. Maybe you still have them. But I don't anymore. From the moment you asked for a divorce, any feelings I have for you died. Her words struck Adrian like a sword straight to the heart. He stared at her in disbelief. How could you have lost your feelings so quickly? We were together for 5 years. So what if we were together for 5 years? Daisy's voice was calm. Feelings aren't something you can just have or lose at will. When you could so easily ask for a divorce for your future, I can also easily refuse you for my new life. Adrian stared at her, as though seeing her for the first time. Was this still the gentle, weak Daisy from his memories? You've changed. Adrian whispered. Yes, I have. Daisy nodded. I've learned not to believe men's words. Not to treat marriage as my whole life. And not to sacrifice myself for others. Daisy. Adrian reached for her hand. But she pulled away. Adrian. I'll say this one last time, it's impossible between us. Daisy's tone was firm. Go back. Marry your Snow. Or find some other woman. I just hope you'll never bother me again. Adrian knew there was no point in arguing any further. So he turned and left. As he walked out of the shop, he glanced back. Daisy had already lowered her head, focused on her work, as though he had never been there at all. That night, Adrian didn't sleep a wink at the guest house. He finally understood he had truly lost Daisy. And this time, it was a loss he would never recover from. The next day, he bought a return train ticket and, feeling utterly despondent, made his way back to the military base. Upon returning to the base, Adrian became even more depressed. Mistakes piled up at work. And even the division commander noticed. He called Adrian in for a talk. Adrian. What's going on? The division commander asked, concern in his voice. Are you feeling unwell? No. I'm fine. Adrian forced a smile. Then why have your work performance been so poor lately? The division commander frowned. There have been several issues on your recent assignments. And that's not like you. Adrian kept his head down, unsure of what to say. The division commander looked at him, sighed, and then asked, "Is this because of the divorce? I heard you and Daisy divorced." Adrian nodded silently. "Listen. It's normal for couples to have disagreements. There's no need to rush into divorce," the division commander said, his tone more serious. "I've met Daisy before. She's a good girl. Have you considered trying to reconcile?" "She doesn't want to," Adrian said with a bitter smile. "I went to see her. And she turned me away." The division commander was surprised. "Really? Daisy always seemed to love you. Why would she refuse to reconcile?" "Because I broke her heart," Adrian said. "Commander. I really regret it. But it's too late now." Chapter 7. While Adrian sank into his gloom, Daisy's business continued to grow. She not only expanded her inventory but also began exploring new areas. One day, Iris came running into the shop, excited to share some news. "Daisy. I heard they're going to legalize private business soon. From now on, it'll be legal to do business." Daisy's heart leapt in her chest. She knew this day was finally coming. The winds of reform were about to blow across the country. And she was already prepared. "Sis. Where did you hear this?" Daisy asked. "I have a friend who works in the city government. She said the documents are already in. And it'll be officially announced soon." Iris beamed. "Daisy. You're really ahead of the game. Starting your business early." Daisy smiled, not saying much. It wasn't foresight that led her to start early, it was the memories from her past life. Sure enough, within a month, the policy was officially announced. Individual businesses were allowed, and private enterprise became legal. The whole society buzzed with excitement. Daisy seized the opportunity and formally registered her shop. She also hired 2 employees. Her business flourished, and her assets grew rapidly. Just then, an unexpected visitor arrived at her shop. "Excuse me, is this Daisy's shop?" A young man in a military uniform asked. Daisy looked up and didn't recognize him. "I'm Daisy. How can I help you?" "I'm a communications officer from the division headquarters. Snow sent me here," the young man said. "The division commander would like to meet with you." Daisy was taken aback. "The division commander? Which division commander?" "The one above Adrian. Our division commander." Snow explained. Daisy understood. Adrian's division commander wanted to meet with her. She immediately guessed that it must be related to convincing her to reconcile with Adrian. "Please tell your division commander that I'm very busy and don't have time for a meeting," Daisy replied firmly. Snow hesitated. "Daisy. The division commander said it's very important. He hopes you can spare some time to meet." Daisy thought for a moment, then decided to go. She wanted to see what Adrian's superior had to say. The division commander was a man in his 50s, with an imposing presence. When he saw Daisy, his attitude was polite. "Comrade Daisy. Thank you for meeting with me." The division commander gestured for her to sit down. "I wanted to talk to you about Adrian. If this is about convincing me to reconcile with him, then forget it," Daisy said directly. "It's impossible between us." The division commander was taken aback by her bluntness. "Comrade Daisy. Could you tell me why you two divorced?" Daisy thought for a moment, then decided to be honest. "Because he wanted to marry someone else. But he didn't want to give up the free housekeeper I was. So he made up a lie and tricked me into a fake divorce." The division commander froze. "What? Such a thing happened? You didn't know?" Daisy asked, raising an eyebrow. "Isn't Snow your relative?" "Snow? The political officer's daughter?" The division commander was even more confused. "What does she have to do with this?" Daisy could tell by his expression that he wasn't pretending. And she began to doubt if he really didn't know the truth. Could it be that the division commander was unaware of Adrian's plans to marry Snow? "Division commander. You didn't know that Adrian wanted to marry Snow?" Daisy asked. "I really didn't know." The division commander shook his head. "But I know that Snow has been chasing Adrian for a while. But Adrian has no interest in her. Daisy's heart skipped a beat. If the division commander was telling the truth, then everything from her past life didn't add up. Why hadn't Adrian married Snow in this life? Then why did you want to meet me, division commander? Daisy asked. I wanted to understand Adrian's situation. The division commander sighed. Since you two divorced, he's changed completely. He's been making mistakes at work and his mental state is poor. I'm worried that if this continues, he'll run into serious trouble. Daisy felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. She hadn't realized that Adrian had become like this after losing her. Comrade Daisy, I'm not here to try to get you to reconcile, the division commander said. I just want to know what Adrian did to make you leave him so decisively. Daisy paused for a moment, then recounted everything that had happened. After hearing her story, the division commander's face darkened. Bastard. The division commander slammed his fist on the table. How could he do that to you? It's in the past now, Daisy said softly. I'm doing fine. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. The division commander looked at her, a hint of guilt in his eyes. On behalf of the organization, I apologize to you. Adrian's actions were indeed too much. We'll deal with it seriously. There's no need for that. Daisy shook her head. I don't want to pursue it any further. I just hope he won't bother me again. The division commander nodded. I'll have a word with him. But Comrade Daisy, I still want to ask. Is there really no chance for reconciliation? There is none. Daisy's voice was firm. Some things cannot be forgiven. I no longer love him. The division commander sighed, knowing there was nothing more to be said. That night, after his conversation with the division commander, Adrian got drunk. He sat alone in his house, staring at the empty rooms, his heart filled with endless regret. He hadn't expected Daisy to tell the division commander the truth, nor had he anticipated that the division commander would be so furious with him. Adrian, you've really disappointed me. The division commander's words echoed in his mind. How could you treat such a good girl like that? Yes, hadn't fulfilled my session. Daisy was indeed a good girl. She was kind, hardworking, and thoughtful, taking care of him meticulously. Yet, for a fleeting political future, he had ruthlessly hurt her. Now, Snow was still clinging to him, but he felt nothing but annoyance toward her. Compared to Daisy, Snow, though young, beautiful, and educated, had nothing else to offer. The more Adrian thought about it, the more regret and pain filled him. He began to understand that he hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost someone who truly loved him. The next day, Adrian, still drunk, went to see his superior, requesting a transfer. I want to apply for a transfer to the border, Adrian said. His superior looked at him, noting how haggard he appeared, and sighed. Adrian, you're running away. I'm not running away. I want to start over, Adrian replied. If I stay here, all I'll do is think of Daisy and my mistakes. His superior thought for a moment and then nodded. All right. Maybe a change of environment will do you good. But I have one condition. What condition? You must apologize to Daisy. A formal, sincere apology, his superior said. Then, let out a low sigh. Write a self-reflection and submit it to the organization. Adrian nodded. He knew he had to do this. Not to earn forgiveness, but for peace of mind. A few days later, Adrian returned to the provincial capital. This time, he wasn't there to pester Daisy. He was there to apologize. When Daisy saw him, the organization, Adrian nodded. He knew he had to do this. Not to earn forgiveness, but for peace of mind. A few days later, Adrian returned to the provincial capital. This time, he wasn't there to pester Daisy. He was there to apologize. When Daisy saw him, her face immediately turned cold. Why are you here again, Daisy? I'm here to apologize to you, Adrian said. I know you won't forgive me, but I need to say it. Daisy stared at him, saying nothing. I admit it. The reason I asked for a divorce was to marry Snow. Adrian lowered his head. I thought you would cry and make a scene. And then I could comfort you. Tell you it was just a temporary measure. I wanted to protect my future and not lose you. I know this idea was despicable and selfish. Adrian continued. I'm sorry, Daisy. You've been with me for 5 years. And I treated you this way. I'm not human. Daisy listened quietly. Her heart moved. I know nothing I say will make a difference. I just want to tell you that I regret it, Adrian said. If there's an afterlife, I hope I can meet you again. Love you again. And not make the same mistakes. With that, Adrian bowed deeply and turned to leave. Daisy watched his retreating figure. A mix of emotion stirring inside her. This time, his apology seemed genuine. But it was too late. Adrian. Daisy called out to him. Adrian turned around. A glimmer of hope in his eyes. Don't come back again, Daisy said. Her tone indifferent. It's completely over between us. Adrian's heart shattered. He nodded and left. Not looking back. This time, he truly wouldn't return. A month later, Adrian was transferred to a border regiment in Jiang. And he never returned. When Daisy heard this news, she felt nothing. Her new life had just begun. And she didn't want the shadows of the past to affect her. Around this time, a new opportunity presented itself. Someone wanted to open a department store in the city center and needed a partner. After some investigation, Daisy decided to invest and take a stake in it. Chapter 9. In 1978, Daisy's department store officially opened. It was the first privately owned department store in the area, and its opening caused quite a stir. Major newspapers in the provincial capital reported on the event, and Daisy became a small-town celebrity entrepreneur. Not only did she own her department store, but she had also invested in several small factories. And her business was thriving. One day, as Daisy was busy at her store, she suddenly saw a familiar face. Daisy. Sister. A young girl ran over to her. Daisy looked closely. And it was her distant cousin, Sparrow. Sparrow was 5 years younger than her. And she was now about 18. Sparrow? What are you doing here? Daisy asked. Pleasantly surprised. I'm here to study at the Provincial Teachers' College. I heard you opened a store here. So I came to visit, Sparrow said excitedly. Daisy. You're amazing. Daisy smiled. It's nothing special. Just a small business. Which school are you at? The Provincial Teachers' College. Sparrow said. I'm studying elementary education. I want to become a teacher. That's a great goal. Daisy nodded. Where are you staying? Are you having any difficulties? I'm staying in the school dorm. But money's a bit tight. Sparrow said. Looking embarrassed. How about this? Daisy said generously. I'll cover your living expenses from now on. Focus on your studies. And become a good teacher. Sparrow was so moved that tears welled up in her eyes. Daisy. You're so good to me. With Sparrow's company, Daisy's life became even more fulfilling. Sparrow often came to help at the store, and the two of them got along very well. One day, Sparrow mysteriously said to Daisy, Daisy. We've got a new teacher at our school. He's really handsome. How old is he? Daisy asked. Laughing. 26. His name's Felix. And he teaches math, Sparrow said. Her face full of admiration. Daisy. Would you like to go see him? Daisy shook her head. I'm not thinking about these things right now. Daisy. You can't stay single forever. Can you? Sparrow urged. You're only 28. Still young. Daisy thought for a moment. Indeed. She couldn't lose faith in all men because of Adrian's betrayal. Now that her career was on track, it was time to consider her personal life. All right. Set it up. I'll meet this Mr. Zhang. Daisy said. Sparrow jumped up excitedly. Great. I'll arrange it right away. A few days later, Daisy met Felix. He was a well-mannered man. Wearing glasses. Speaking gently. And giving off a dependable vibe. Mr. Zhang. I've heard so much about you. Daisy said politely. Sparrow often talks about you and says you're someone she admires the most. Not at all. Felix said modestly. I'm just a teacher. I heard you're an outstanding businesswoman. Though. I've just been lucky. Daisy replied. I heard you graduated from college? Yes, heading till Selwyn session. I graduated from East China Normal University with a degree in mathematics, Felix said. After graduating, I came here to teach. The two of them hit it off immediately. Felix was knowledgeable, articulate, and fully supportive of Daisy's career. He didn't harbor any sexist views. Sparrow, I think you're amazing, Felix said sincerely. For a woman to achieve something like this in these times, it's truly impressive. Daisy was very impressed with him. Unlike Adrian's chauvinistic attitudes, Felix respected women and supported female entrepreneurship. In the following months, Andy let out a low sigh. They met frequently. Felix would stop by the store during his breaks, and Daisy would visit him at school when she had time. Their relationship grew closer, with Sparrow playing a big part in bringing them together, often creating opportunities for them to be alone. 6 months later, Felix proposed to Daisy. Daisy, I know you've had an unhappy marriage before, Felix said, but I hope you can give me a chance to protect you, to take care of you. Daisy looked into his sincere eyes, and a warm feeling surged in her heart. This feeling was different from the passion she once had for Adrian. It was more about a sense of safety and trust. Felix, there's something I need to tell you, Daisy said. I have my own career now. I won't give up my work after marriage. Can you accept that? Of course. I can, Felix replied without hesitation. I support your career and will help you. We can work hard together and create a beautiful future. Daisy was moved. Such a man was indeed worthy of her lifelong commitment. Okay. I agree. Daisy nodded. Felix was so excited that he hugged her, and the two embraced tightly. Sparrow, standing by the side, clapped her hands in excitement. That's great. Daisy, you've finally found happiness. Chapter 10. In the spring of 1979, Daisy and Felix had their wedding. It was a simple yet warm ceremony, attended by their close friends and family. Daisy wore a red kippah, and Felix wore a Zongshan suit. Standing together, they made a perfect couple. Iris stood by, wiping away tears. Daisy, you've finally found a good man. Sparrow was equally emotional. Daisy, I wish you both a lifetime of happiness. After the wedding, the couple returned to their respective work. Felix taught at the school, and Daisy continued to run her business. They lived harmoniously, supporting and understanding each other. Felix was indeed a good husband. Not only did he support Daisy's career, but he also often helped her with ideas and plans. On his advice, Daisy branched out into the education sector, investing in several private schools. Her business grew steadily, and Daisy became a well-known female entrepreneur in the area. She was named a labor model by the provincial government and even had an audience with the leadership. One day, Daisy was in her office handling some matters when her secretary, Victor, knocked and entered. President Sparrow, someone's here to see you. Who is it? Daisy asked without looking up. A soldier. He says he's an old friend of yours, Victor replied. Daisy looked up, a bad premonition rising in her chest. What kind of soldier? 40-something. With several stars on his shoulders, Victor described. Daisy's heart skipped a beat. Several stars on his shoulders meant he was a high-ranking officer. Could it be Adrian? Please let him in, Daisy said. Soon, Hadanowosai, a middle-aged man in military uniform entered. Daisy looked up and saw. Indeed, it was Adrian. But he looked much older than he did 10 years ago, with more gray in his hair. Daisy. Adrian called softly. Daisy, she said coldly. Please. Have a seat. Adrian sat down, looking around at the lavish office. Your career has really grown. It's doing okay, Daisy replied unfairly. What brings you here? I've been reassigned. Now I'm the deputy commander in the military district, Adrian said. I heard you're married now. Yes, Heather. My husband is a teacher. Daisy nodded. We're very happy. At these words, a flash of pain crossed Adrian's eyes. 10 years had passed. He had spent 10 years on the frontier, constantly thinking of her. But now she had a new life, a new love. As long as you're happy, Adrian said, forcing back the pain in his voice. I'm here to tell you something. What is it? Snow is dead. Adrian said quietly. 3 years ago. She married a businessman. But that man betrayed her. And she couldn't bear it. She committed suicide. Daisy froze for a moment. A complex emotion swirling inside her. Snow had once been her rival. But hearing about her death still made her feel something. Why are you telling me this? Daisy asked. I wanted to tell you that I haven't remarried. Adrian said. You've always been the only one in my heart. Adrian. None of that matters anymore. Daisy replied flatly. We both have our own lives now. The past is the past. Adrian looked at her. His eyes filled with reluctance. Daisy. I know we're never getting back together. But I need you to know that for the past 10 years. I've regretted everything. If I could do it over. I would never hurt you. There are no ifs in this world. Daisy said. Standing up. Adrian. If there's nothing else. I need to go to a meeting. Adrian knew he had been dismissed and stood up. Daisy. Take care. You too. Daisy said politely. As Adrian reached the door. He suddenly turned back. Daisy. Do you hate me? Daisy thought for a moment. Then shook her head. No. I don't. Hating someone is too exhausting. I just want to live a good life now. Adrian nodded and, without a word, left. Watching him walk away, Daisy felt no ripple in her heart. 10 years had been enough for her to let go of all the bitterness. Now, she had a loving husband, a successful career, and a bright future ahead. The pain of the past was just a small chapter in her life. When Daisy returned home that evening, Felix had already prepared dinner and was waiting for her. Why are you so late? Felix asked with concern. I ran into an old friend. Daisy said with a smile. Someone from the past. Felix didn't press her further. He simply embraced her gently. You're tired. You should rest early. Daisy leaned into his embrace, feeling a deep sense of security. This was the life she had always wanted, simple yet warm. Peaceful yet filled with happiness. As for Adrian, let him carry his regrets and sorrow, continuing on his own journey. Daisy had already turned the page to a new chapter of her life.